Mermaid and Snow White, they decided to bastardize these adaptations and maybe push a little DEI while they were at it. The Greatest Showman helmer Michael Gracie was on board to direct the musically inclined remake of the 2010 animated hit. Rapunzel is rolling back up her hair.
Rachel Zegler's involvement in the Snow White 2025 remake has been a source of relentless controversy, attracting fierce criticism from longtime fans of the 1937 classic, as well as modern audiences who were curious about Disney's latest attempt at reinventing a beloved story. Tensions had already been running high, following remarks that Rachel made about the outdated nature of the original plot, her apparent dismissal of cherished elements of the film, and the growing behind-the-scenes turmoil.
$170 million by the end of 2023. Doesn't count reshoots, doesn't count a lot of post-production work, so yeah, the budget's well over $300 million. We know that, which is why Disney's likely to lose over $300 million.
Particularly noteworthy was the rumored conflict between Rachel Zegler and co-star Gal Gadot. However, the situation took a dramatic turn when an episode of South Park aired a clear parody mocking the Snow White controversy, featuring a caricature of Rachel herself. The show's sharp satire, though brief, quickly went viral. Within hours, reports surfaced that Rachel was furious over the portrayal, feeling it added yet another layer of ridicule to an already difficult situation within Disney.
There to show up and say your lines and look the way they want you to look. That is our job, and that was my job on this production. So again, that's really all I can say. Which honestly kind of seems like maybe this path that I'm taking right now is the path that Rachel Zegler should have taken instead of just running her mouth for the last 3 years, which we are going to get into now that I have sort of addressed what you guys want me to.
The reaction from Disney was one of alarm, as if company leadership under Bob Iger didn't already have enough to contend with. What with underperforming releases, The Daredevil Born Again, debacle on Disney Plus, and growing concerns over the performance of recent Marvel entries. The idea that Snow White was now being mocked in a mainstream animated comedy only amplified existing fears and added to the mounting pressure.
One major development going on now involves more to do with Rachel Zegler and her attitude towards South Park Studios and Paramount after learning about what they are planning for their upcoming special called the DEI Special.
No strangers to controversy. South Park creators have a long history of poking fun at celebrities and pop culture with their sharp and often biting humor. This time, they took aim at Rachel Zegler, portraying a satirical version of the actress who spent the episode berating everyone around her. The exaggerated parody had Zegler delivering over-the-top critiques of the 1937 classic Snow White, claiming that the new remake was an effort to save society, all while ignoring the views of her co-stars and the fictional Disney executives within the storyline. As soon as the parody aired, the internet exploded. Memes spread like wildfire, with fans dissecting every comedic jab and speculating whether Disney would respond in any official way. Clips shared on social media highlighted striking similarities to real interviews Zegler had given, and many viewers were amused by how closely the satire mirrored her actual public persona. The most talked-about moment was a fictional meltdown from Zegler's Snow White character, who realized she was stealing the spotlight from the evil queen, drawing even more attention and speculation online.
Exactly what they're doing, and that is why we hate the diversity, equity, and inclusion casting and writing in movies.
Some who had only been casually following the Snow White controversy found themselves suddenly pulled into the drama, all thanks to South Park's sharp comedic take. In the immediate aftermath, hashtags like our Snow White fiasco and Rachel Zegler began trending alongside discussions of Bob Iger's leadership and Disney's wider troubles. As word spread that Zegler was privately furious about the parody, industry insiders revealed that she felt blindsided by the portrayal. Sources close to her camp claimed that, from her perspective,
Snow White is the first American feature-length animated movie, 1937. It's one of the most beloved movies of all time.
the comedic portrayal was seen by Zegler as cruel and unfair, depicting her as an unhinged diva who despised the original Snow White. It was reported that she considered issuing a statement to clarify her true views on the 1937 classic, but Disney allegedly urged her to remain silent, fearing that any further comments would only escalate the situation. This came on the heels of a broader corporate strategy to limit her appearances on major talk shows and events, a move that had already sparked tension between Zegler and Disney's leadership.
Even if everything worked perfectly, it would have been almost impossible for this movie to succeed, because you're comparing it to one of the most beloved films of all time and a truly groundbreaking movie.
In the weeks leading up to the South Park Mockery, multiple talk show invitations and promotional segments for Rachel Zegler were suddenly canceled by Disney. Official statements cited scheduling conflicts or unforeseen adjustments, but several insiders claimed the true motive was the company's desire to avoid any more controversial comments. Zegler's previous interviews, where she discussed revolutionizing the Snow White mythos, had already alienated some fans who held the original film in high regard.
Our rights are on the line, folks.
Yes! The rights to buy Cosby sweaters?
Come on.
This is the face of a serial killer.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button.
Rumors of tension between Zegler and Gal Gadot, fueled by an awkward awards ceremony appearance where the two pointedly avoided eye contact, only added to the growing sense that something was seriously amiss behind the scenes of the Snow White production. Disney executives were reportedly in a state of panic, as their once reliable strategy of adapting classic films seemed to be backfiring. This led to heated internal discussions about how to manage Rachel Zegler's outspoken stance and navigate the fallout from her public comments.
You don't particularly see people who, look like me or are me playing roles like that. So it was definitely when it got announced.
White!
He wasn't a stalker, by the way.
That was trending on Twitter for days because all of the people were angry.
Some critics argued that the attempts to breathe new life into the 1937 film were too forceful, altering beloved story elements in favor of messaging that threatened to diminish the original magic. On the other hand, others warned that modern audiences expected stories to reflect current values, and that a reimagined version of Snow White should naturally embrace a more contemporary perspective.
It's no longer 1937. We absolutely wrote a Snow White. That is not going to be saved by
You wrote it?
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can.
Yet no consensus emerged, and the controversy only intensified, becoming even more public with the sudden spotlight cast by South Park. The show lampooned the entire ordeal, including Rachel Zegler's widely circulated comment that the original Snow White felt outdated and unrepresentative of modern sensibilities. This pushed the controversy into the heart of mainstream pop culture for several days. The storyline wasn't just about an actress criticizing a classic or a rumored feud with her co-star. It became a broader conversation about the clash between tradition and modern sensibilities in the entertainment industry.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Say it louder so your other eye can hear you.
It became clear that Snow White 2025 Yiwad had been so widely ridiculed that even a satirical cartoon, known for its scathing commentary, had joined in. Critics argued that this was a serious blow for a film that couldn't afford any more negative attention. Over the weekend, social media users began spotting what they believed to be Rachel Zegler's cryptic posts, which seemed to express irritation, possibly hinting at the South Park parody without directly referencing it.
It was supposed to come out like a year and a half ago. And then we went after them so hard because of their variety of ridiculous sins that they actually went into full-scale reshoots on Snow White when we announced that we had a competitor.
There were discussions about how comedic caricatures can overshadow meaningful conversations about progress. Some fans expressed sympathy, feeling that while South Park's approach was funny, it might unfairly reduce nuanced debates to mere punchlines. However, many others believed the show simply captured the public's frustration with yet another Disney remake that seemed to trample on a beloved classic. Reactions were mixed, with new memes circulating that humorously mocked the idea of a Snow White crusade aimed at fixing society.
It was the first animated film that had the kind of Disney magic that had depth, that had absolute, it was riveting, and it's based, of course, on the Brothers Grimm story.
As South Park's comedic portrayal suggested, Disney appeared either unable or unwilling to mount an effective defense. Executives were reportedly concerned that responding to the parody would only invite more mockery, as public backlash against South Park typically ended up boosting the show's comedic brand. Despite this, the lack of a clear response fueled speculation that the company was in disarray. Rumors swirled that meetings involving Bob Iger and the board of directors were happening almost daily, as they scrambled to find a way to prevent Snow White 2025 from becoming a catastrophic flop. Perhaps it was already too late. With each new detail leaking, whether about Rachel Zegler's anger or the comedic roast on television, interest began to shift away from the actual movie and toward the spectacle of endless controversy. Meanwhile, Zegler's relationship with Disney continued to unravel. Insiders claimed she felt the company was abandoning her, refusing to defend her against the mounting criticism. She believed that their decision to cancel her talk show appearances could be breaching parts of her contract that guaranteed promotional opportunities. The tension reportedly escalated to the point where her representatives quietly explored potential legal action.
As an actor, you don't get to dictate anything. You don't get to dictate if a film actually happens. You don't get to dictate when it is shot, how it is shot, if you can ever speak about it to the public. You are simply just there to show up and say your lines and look the way they want you to look.
Though it remained unclear whether the potential lawsuit was a negotiating tactic or a genuine plan, the mere possibility of a legal battle between a rising actress and a powerhouse like Disney only fueled more rumors, especially in the aftermath of the South Park episode. On top of it all, Gal Gadot's involvement became an increasingly complicated issue. Initially cast in a major role, she had been a key draw for fans eager to see her portrayal of the evil queen. However, behind-the-scenes reports of tension between her and Rachel Zegler began to spill into the public eye, especially when the two avoided any interaction at a major event.
God forbid a woman dream about true love. We're all just sitting around here, maybe I could be president one day. I hate that. I just want to be president. That screams Disney princess. Oh my God, I'm literally getting enraged. Once again, I feel like I'm back in 2022.
Speculation ran rampant that Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot had clashed over creative differences, with reports suggesting that Rachel had complained about certain improvised lines by Gal that allegedly hijacked key scenes. The tension reportedly escalated to the point where rumors circulated that entire sequences had been cut to appease the lead actress. This idea gained even more traction when South Park humorously depicted the Snow White character screaming at a caricature of the evil queen for overshadowing her. For fans and observers, the entire fiasco began to take on almost surreal proportions. On one hand, a significant portion of the audience felt the new film was trampling on a beloved classic. On the other hand, there were those who championed modernization, praising Rachel Zegler's ambition to craft a more relevant, contemporary Snow White. Some viewers were genuinely curious to see how the final product would blend Disney's timeless magic with modern sensibilities. Yet the overwhelming negative buzz, fueled by constant rumors, confirmed cancellations, and now comedic jabs from a major pop culture staple, threatened to overshadow any chance of a fair appraisal of the finished movie. The canceled promotional events only added to the sense of chaos. Interviews on top-tier late-night talk shows were reportedly scrapped, a planned Saturday Night Live performance in costume was called off, and a rumored grand musical showcase at Disney World never materialized. Each time fans anticipated an appearance, a last-minute announcement cited scheduling conflicts as the cause. Insiders, however, claimed that the studio was simply afraid to let Rachel speak freely. The Snow White 2025 remake was poised to be a major release, but behind the scenes, a perfect storm of controversy was brewing. Rachel Zegler, the lead actress, found herself at the center of a media firestorm that would be amplified by South Park's iconic satirical lens. The show's depiction of her, including exaggerated criticisms of the 1937 classic, mirrored real-life tension and controversy, and set the stage for a cultural moment that would continue to evolve in the public eye. The South Park episode quickly fueled public debate, painting Rachel as an actress gone overboard, upset about the outdated themes of Snow White, and aggressively pushing for a modern reimagining. While some fans admired her boldness in advocating for a more relevant contemporary version, others saw her critiques as alienating and patronizing to the original material. The episode catapulted the Snow White remake into the mainstream media spotlight, with fans, critics, and commentators alike dissecting the jabs and implications. At the same time, South Park cleverly skewered Disney's executives, portraying them as bumbling and indecisive, unable to handle the backlash that Rachel's comments had stirred. This comedic mockery only added fuel to an already tense situation. At Disney, where insiders revealed that behind closed doors, the production had been chaotic. Leaks from the set suggested that creative disagreements and tension between Rachel Zegler and her co-star Gal Gadot, who portrayed the evil queen, were escalating. Rumors swirled that Rachel's complaints about Gadot's improvised lines hijacking key scenes had led to multiple rounds of reshoots and rewrites, with Disney frantically trying to salvage a workable third act. The situation worsened when Disney began canceling promotional appearances for Zegler, reportedly due to fears that she might make inflammatory remarks that could further damage the film's prospects. Interviews on popular late-night talk shows were abruptly canceled. A planned Saturday Night Live performance in costume was scrapped, and a grand musical showcase at Disney World never came to fruition. Officially, these cancellations were attributed to scheduling conflicts, but many insiders believed Disney was simply trying to keep Zegler from speaking freely. The lack of clear communication from Disney only fed the rumor mill, and as the South Park episode continued to circulate, speculation about the production's fate grew. Some fans theorized that Disney was making changes to the film, possibly altering the portrayal of Zegler's Snow White to soften her character in response to the public backlash. Others believed the film's release date might be delayed in an attempt to let the controversies die down. The absence of a coordinated public response made it impossible to separate fact from fiction, with each new rumor only escalating the sense of chaos. Bob Iger, who had returned to the CEO role at Disney with a reputation for deftly handling corporate crises, now found himself in a precarious position. Critics argued that the Snow White debacle was evidence that Disney's approach to reimagining its classics had become careless and reactive. With multiple recent box office disappointments and a growing sense of corporate indecision, the pressure on Iger and his team was immense. The film's failure, they feared, could tarnish Disney's reputation and brand image, which had already been affected by the negative buzz surrounding the Snow White remake. Meanwhile, Rachel Zegler's public image continued to take a beating. Initially hailed as an exciting new talent, she was now increasingly associated with the disastrous publicity surrounding the film. Older fans slammed her for what they perceived as a disrespectful attitude toward the original 1937 film, while younger fans saw her as a victim of corporate interests attempting to control the narrative. Her defenders argued that she was being unfairly scapegoated, but the constant flow of negative headlines combined with the South Park mockery made it difficult for Zegler to reclaim her image. The backstage drama between Zegler and Gadot also played into the growing narrative. Sources suggested that the two had clashed over creative differences, which were further amplified by their refusal to interact at a major event. Fans and media, outlets alike, speculated that these tensions were damaging the film's production, and some believed that Disney was cutting scenes or altering the storyline to appease one actress over another. The broader implications of the Snow White debacle also had industry-wide repercussions. Hollywood's reboot culture had long been a source of debate, but the Snow White controversy brought the issue into sharp focus. Commentators argued that when studios attempt to overhaul iconic tales, they walk a fine line between innovation and respect for tradition. If they lean too heavily into modern messaging, they risk alienating fans who cherish the original. If they stick too closely to the original, they may be criticized for lacking creativity. Rachel Zegler's outspoken stance had inadvertently sparked a firestorm, highlighting the fragile nature of reimagining classic stories in an era where public opinion can make or break a project. In the midst of this chaos, Disney executives scrambled to manage the crisis, facing both internal pressure and external ridicule. Iger was said to be weighing whether to intervene and clarify the company's stance, but any public response could be seen as adding fuel to the fire. Meanwhile, Gal Gadot remained mostly silent, though rumors about her strained relationship with Zegler continued to circulate. The situation was further complicated by the persistent rumors about reshoots, canceled events, and strained relationships between the film's stars. All of this served to reinforce the growing perception that Disney was struggling to regain control of its own creation. As for the film itself, the possibility of it being overshadowed by behind-the-scenes drama loomed large. Could Snow White 2025 vows transcend the chaos surrounding it? Some fans held out hope that, despite the controversy, the final product might still resonate with audiences if the performances, visuals, and storytelling could capture the magic of Disney's past while embracing the demands of modern audiences. However, as each new twist emerged, whether another canceled appearance, another rumor of on-set drama, or another satirical jab from South Park, that hope seemed to fade further. Ultimately, the South Park episode became a cultural touchstone, cementing Rachel Zegler as a lightning rod for debate. Her portrayal in the episode was a comical exaggeration of the very controversies she was caught up in, but it also captured the growing public exasperation with the Snow White remake. Whether she was truly losing it or simply caught in a media frenzy, the damage to her reputation seemed to be lasting. And for Disney, the film's fate hung in the balance. Would the Snow White remake be remembered as a modern twist on a classic, or as a cautionary tale of corporate mismanagement, creative clashes, and a satirical cartoon turning real-life drama into comedy? As the release date loomed, the drama surrounding the film continued to unfold. South Park had succeeded in turning the controversy into a pop culture phenomenon, while Disney, once a master of image management, seemed paralyzed by indecision. For Rachel Zegler, the Snow White saga was quickly becoming a defining moment in her career, for better or worse. Whether she could rebound from the storm and reclaim her narrative remained to be seen. But for now, the Snow White 2025 debacle would endure as a case study in the high-stakes world of franchise filmmaking